Long one. Yeah. Okay,
you are ready to go.
I don't want to do that. I'll do that.
No, I thought you had something. All right.
Live fire.
All right. Oh, yeah. Excuse me. They're telling me about the second meeting. Sorry. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting is properly noticed.
Yeah.
Do you have any public comments or correspondence, communications? None. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Supervisor Larson?
I said aye, yes.
Okay. And opposed, none. Passes 5-0. Corporate council report. Guess there is none today.
No, she's on Zoom.
Good morning, I'm here.
Oh, there she is. I'm sorry, I didn't see you up there.
Doing this more efficiently today, not driving down. I don't really have anything to report, but I'm here in case there are any questions about our financial report or anything like that.
Okay. Is there anything for the corporate council report? I think it looks good. We're all good? Supervisor Winker?
No.
Oh, okay. No, I guess we're all good.
Through the treasurer.
What is this with? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. All right, discussion items. Zaki Strategic Plan 2020 to 2024.
Mr. Whitaker is running just a little bit behind. He was dropping his daughter off at school. So I don't know if we want to
push down the agenda.
Yeah, if you want to take the first couple items on the agenda.
Okay, and also for performance.
Yeah, he has both of those. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move right on to action item 7A. Resolution increase of revenue 2021 planning and parks, public health. Andrew is here with us.
And we have Kim, our interim health officer, as well. So.
Okay. So, Andrew, what do you have to explain to us about increased revenue?
Sure. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, two increases in revenue. One is a grant from the Wisconsin Coastal Management Program. It's for our work on the stormwater wetlands out at Mequon County Park and Golf Course. So this is one of a couple grants, but an increase in revenue from coastal management, the total amount being $38,000. And the second increase in revenue is a intergovernmental cooperation agreement with MMSD. A like project we're doing, I think some of you know that we're doing some mapping of the Milwaukee River with side scan sonar. So we're mapping the river for potential sturgeon habitat. And this is a cooperative effort with MMSD. It'll serve as match funds for another grant that we're working under as well. So that amounts $2,500.
Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, I see there's for public health COVID expenditures, the 2.5 million grant. My question, because we're running into it in towns where you get this grant money and it's very specific that you can't use it. Obviously, you're not in public health, but do they feel they'll be able to utilize this money?
Well, we do it. We have our interim health.
Okay, maybe I'm asking the wrong person, but I think it's a good question.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to talk to Andrew about his part. Then
but if somebody, I don't care who answers this, are we going to be able to utilize this money?
So,
Hi, this is Kim from the Public Health Department on the phone. If you're referring to our COVID funding that we've requested, we were we were granted a little more than we were expecting. So this just came in this week. It was originally about half this amount of money. We aren't 100% sure if we're going to need all of it yet, but we do have the ability to give it back to the state if we don't need it all. We're asking that you approve it to be added just into our budget, just in case we do need the funding, because if we don't accept it now, we may not get more in the future. And because COVID has been so up and down, we can't necessarily predict whether or not we're going to need more funding in the future. And this funding is supposed to carry us through most of 2022. So if we don't accept this funding, we potentially may not get any more if COVID does end up taking a turn for the worse and we end up needing more pandemic response in the future. So as of right now, we plan on using this funding to continue our contact tracing efforts, which we are still doing. We're very heavily involved in the schools as well right now, helping them to continue contact tracing with their students, and then continuing to keep our testing sites available for as long as we need them, and having vaccination clinics. We're currently phasing out of our mass clinics, but we are still working on more targeted clinics for businesses, schools, partnering with libraries, trying to reach people that just haven't had the opportunity to get the vaccine yet. While we're seeing our numbers for vaccines slightly start to trail off a little bit, we are still a little hesitant to not take on more money because we don't necessarily know yet whether or not we will have to play a role in vaccinating children when they become available. So this also would allow us to participate in that if necessary.
This is a separate stream from like the money that town of Belgium would have received from the American Recovery Act. This is more specific state grant for actual COVID expenditures, where the EARA funding is a different funding stream. So this would just establish the budget that they could spend against, and I would assume if the money wasn't spent, it'd be returned to the state of Wisconsin.
I guess my only comment, Kim, is, try to be innovative on this because it is money that is expected to be spent, so I guess be a little innovative on this if you can.
Absolutely.
Well, I have kind of thought about it where, differently on that subject. So how much, can I ask a couple of questions? How much did we request?
We actually didn't request a specific amount. This was allocated to us based on our population.
Okay, but you said you thought we'd get about half, so about $1.2 million or whatever?
Yeah, we originally thought it would be about $1.3 million to get us through 2022. And the state just this past week or two announced that it would be double that. So it wasn't based on a request by us. It was just based on population and what they had available to give us.
They have a lot available, I guess. So so what did we spend? Do you have an idea, round ballpark figure, or Jason, how much we spent on this kind of COVID stuff up until now? Through this last year, was it about $1 billion, or was it?
Kim might have a better idea of that than I do, but I think we could look it up. But any estimate on what we spent, Kim?
Yeah, I don't know the number offhand. It was over $1 million, but I couldn't tell you exactly how much it was right at this moment.
Okay, but and that's what it just surprised me, because that's through all of 2020 and up until 2021, we've had a lot of efforts through COVID, and we've spent that much. So it seems like this amount is surely going to be enough. So where does so right now is testing the same, or are we doing that as much as we were before? Our testing clinics? Our numbers
have dropped off a little bit, but we do still have our curative testing vans located at both of our Ozaukee and Washington County Fairgrounds sites. They are still seeing regular visits to their vans, but not quite as many per day as there used to be.
And we're not doing any at the administration building here anymore, like we used to?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's all good news. Things are improving. as far as vaccinations, where are we doing vaccinations for the county?
I didn't look today. Earlier this week, we were a little over 54%, I think, or maybe it was 50.4. Let me look at my number quick. I've got it here in front of me. 54.8% of Ozaukee County residents had received at least one dose as of earlier this week.
Okay,
which is actually above the state average, so it's pretty good.
Well, that's wonderful. And where are we actually, the county actually applying or administering vaccinations right now?
What was that?
The county is administering vaccinations, right? Where is that?
Yes, we are.
Same level as it used to be, or is that reduced also?
We are starting to reduce it this week and next week. We're kind of phasing out of our mass clinics just because we haven't seen the numbers that we were seeing in the beginning, but we are still doing one-off clinics here and there at various different locations aside from the fairgrounds, and we are doing more targeted approaches, working with our homebound clients. We did visits at the jails in both counties to vaccinate them. So we're still doing it, but we're taking a slightly different approach at this point.
Do you know how many people have received their second dose?
I don't have that number offhand, no.
So, you know, I just am concerned at $2.5 million. Where does the money go? What account does it go into?
It'll be in the
general fund.
Public health has its own fund
account.
Yeah.
And if we don't use it, you just tell the state, here's $1 million back, and we write them a check. Is that how it works?
We will only be asking them to give it to us as we spend it. So we're not asking them to give it to us up front. This would be, we ask for reimbursement as we go.
All right, well, that makes me feel a little better about it, that it's, that it'll be used wisely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, and I just, you know, I have with all this money that's being thrown around, I just get worried that it'll be spent, trying to find places to spend it where it really doesn't really need to be spent just to spend it. So I appreciate that they're doing it that way. Yeah, thank you for your answers. Any other comments or questions for Kim or anybody?
Well,
Supervisor.
that opened up a whole new question I have. With all the grant money that we have in an account, looking at fiscal year, do we have the money in the grant account, or is it just not money in the grant account that we're going to get? Don't we really have the, like, don't we really have the 38,000 and the other monies? Am I getting suddenly confused?
These are both establishing budgets that we will expend against.
Not putting money into the budget, into the account. Okay.
So this gives that public health the ability to, you know, to spend against these budgetary line items. We're amending the budget.
There's no money behind it at this point.
This specific one is this specific one is a reimbursement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of them are actual.
Andrews might be a little bit. I don't know. Andrews might be a little bit different. I'm not sure.
In this case, they're both reimbursable as well. In this case.
So we're just establishing a budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Just like we would for human services revenue, you know, we make an assumption that we're going to receive revenue, and then we spend against it and monitor that revenue throughout the year.
I have one other question that I thought of also. Is that, so, Kim, is there, so they have requirements that this money needs to be spent. Do you have restrictions? There are certain things we can spend it on and other things we can't, correct? So,
yeah, I think it's listed in the support document what's allowable.
all right.
But it's basically for COVID-related expenses.
That's correct. It hasn't been very specifically defined for this particular lump of money. the state found that health departments were having a hard time spending their funding last year when they had too many specific requirements on it. So they're trying to make this a little bit more broad for us. But in the support document, I did include some of the ways that we would spend the money.
Andrew, just a question on the grant for beach testing grant. What location is that for?
That's private, yeah.
Yeah, that's public health.
Kim, the beach testing grant, what location is that for?
That's for all of our public beaches. So it would include like Port Washington, North and South Beach. We do some testing down by Concordia. There's a variety of different locations in the area that we have a couple of staff based.
Kim, you wouldn't know this. I'm the chairman for the town of Belgium. We always have trouble over the summer at the Harrington Beach location. Is this part of that money going to be used for that?
Historically, testing in Belgium.
Right, at Harrington Beach.
Yeah. I think it's at different intervals.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
Historically, it's all the public beaches throughout the county. They have at certain intervals.
Yeah.
So, back to the 2.5 million. So, Jason, can we get like updates on how much we spend, or at some points, like
Sure.
Intervals of just curious where we are.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
The second. Second. Next motion made by Supervisor Richard, seconded by Supervisor Winker. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Resolution.
I think Mr. Winnick joined us, so.
Okay, can we go back? Jason, can we do the discussion items for strategic plan 2020?
Morning, supervisors. Jason, do you want to tee it up at all, or do you just want me to begin?
Yeah, well, this is part of our strategic. So we have two things here. The first part is part of our strategic planning effort that we undertook beginning 2018 and 2019. Obviously, we hit the pause button a little bit during COVID. So what we'll be reviewing today are the high-level goals that fall under the purview of the finance committee. So as you know, in December of this year, the county board approved those 6 high-level areas. And I think today, Jason will be reviewing the work that's been done to date. It's the opportunity for the committee to review and comment. And then what our goal will be to go through this year, reporting out on these goals. And then when we start with our new committees in May of 2022, then we'll sort of have a discussion on, do we shift? Do we move in another direction, et cetera? Or do we continue on the same path? So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Jason Winnick.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen with everybody. And just to remind everybody of our plan, just the structure of it, we have 6 strategic goals, and then it flows down into strategic objectives under each one of the goals. And then there are strategy and tactics for that. And so what we've done is we're utilizing our OpenGov software that we use for our budgeting and our performance metrics. And we've created a unique link and page for every one of the 6 strategic goals. So there are 2 strategic goals today that we're going to go through and give basically a progress update of the strategic plan with the team leaders. So the first one is section 5, and Chris McDonald, our HR director, is the team leader on that. But the overall goal is to develop our culture and employees. We're looking at driving engagement, lowering turnover, and increasing workplace safety and satisfaction. So as you can see, we're scrolling down on it as well. We will have all of these links after this month of oversight committees all on the county administrator webpage. under strategic planning. They'll be linked out here and you'll be able to peruse these at any time. The plan is to have quarterly updates with the oversight committees. So it's really an opportunity for the committee to see the progress made, as well as, suggest or offer, modifications to tactics and work plans and strategy that staff is working on. So 1 second here, lost it. So with that, I would invite Chris up to the table if he wants to start helping go through our first strategic objective here. That is to maintain competitive wages and benefits. So what we've done here is listed the tactic, the owner, a target timeline, and a status. So it'll either be not started, in progress, complete, or delayed. So with that, Chris, go ahead and start with the first tactic.
All right, so the first one, analyzing private sector amenities. The idea with that is we have Catherine Hedda, she's our human resources business partner. Kind of look at public and private sector, just kind of see what benefits they're offering, to see if there's anything that we're not offering that that our employees may enjoy. I believe we'll probably be working on that later this year. Number two, analyze benefit options and wellness program. So this is something we're working on right now. Is we typically go out to market with our benefits every 2 years. So we've been working with Anthony Associates, our broker. Over the last month, we're planning to go out to market with all of our benefits. So the big one is health insurance, but also dental, vision, long-term disability, life insurance. So really everything. So we were last year, 2020. So really the big thing is health insurance. What drives the cost is the loss ratio. So for every dollar we pay in premium, how much is Group Health Trust paying out in premiums? So in 2019, the loss ratio was 100%. So every dollar we paid to GHT, they paid out a dollar in claims. We had about a 7 or 8% increase based on that. 2020, our loss ratio was about 85%, which is typically where you want to be. And that gave us a 3% increase. And how we're trending this year, my guess will probably be around 85%. So we're hoping for another good renewal. I know Anze was reaching out to them to see if we can try to secure a low increase, a 2% increase immediately earlier in the year to, perhaps we won't go to market if we can secure that low of an increase. So there'll be, more coming to this committee once we analyze the benefit options and decide what we'd like to do for next year. Perform a wage study. So this is something that cities and counties typically try to do about once every 10 years, just to ensure our deal with any compression issues. That'd be employees, their wages are starting to creep up close to management level, and also just make sure our wages are competitive with other counties. So what I do is I sent an email out to all HR directors for the 72 Wisconsin counties and asked, what the vendors did they use? Were they happy with them? So I got a list of all the different vendors other counties have used. I put together an RFP and put that out to vendors a few months ago. So I have some price proposals. And the idea of the study is we'd hire a vendor. They would look at, we have probably 240 unique positions in the county. So they'd analyze each of those positions, make sure that internal equity is correct, and then also look at 7 or 8 other counties that we consider comparable, just to kind of see, where do we line up those counties if we're paying competitive. So the idea is I'm hoping to get the cost for the study approved as part of the next year's budget. And the idea would be hire a vendor. They do a study in 2022 and implement any changes to our wage scales January 1, 2023.
Chris, just a suggestion on this wage study. Last night, I was talking to a gentleman, and I won't say the name of the company, but it's a local company in Ozaukee County. It's a manufacturing company. He basically runs the entire place. Within the last week or two, everybody that worked in the factory got a $2.50 raise just because of the issues with labor and shortage of living, breathing bodies to work. So I think everybody's going to realize that this is going to cause us to, this year when we look at our budget, for that personnel increase cost, I don't see any other way around it. If you have good people, you want to keep them. So.
Yeah, we've actually been doing some budgetary planning throughout the last couple of years. So I think we'll talk about that with this committee and the executive committee to do that. You know, and I think to that point, we're seeing it certainly right now in our Lasada nursing home facility. You know, there's more incentive not to work right now than there is to take a job making $16 an hour. So I know recruitment has been a real challenge at the nursing home facility because, you know, between the state unemployment benefits and the additional federal add-on, you know, you could be making $2,000 a month for not working. So yeah, it's been, so exactly to that point, the challenge of finding people who want to work and have an incentive to do it, financial incentive to do it, is becoming more and more of a challenge. So
and hopefully that all ends at the end of September, but
yeah,
you never know.
I mean, do you think there's any chance? Many states are ending it now already. Do you think there's any chance Wisconsin would end it?
I know there's discussions that, you know, at the.
Well, Paul, to that point, I could tell you I'm very close with Dewey Strobel. I probably talk to him every other week, and they're doing stuff down there, but they don't feel the governor would sign anything. So
that's what I was afraid of. Okay.
Any question on those three items?
No, not on those three items.
I have a question on
We're also trying to see, as I scroll through my screen, we're trying to mesh the key performance indicators with each one of the applicable objectives. So we have some information here, pulling some of Chris's department's performance metrics in terms of turnover percentage of the last couple of years within the county. Also, throughout this strategic goal, you'll see references to an employee engagement survey that HR just completed with employees. So, you know, there's some information on, you know, how folks feel about benefits package and the percentile. Maybe, Chris, if you want to, it's, you know, it's not 15% of employees that felt their, you know, benefit package. That was sort of a comparison ranking, right, to others in the industry.
Yeah, so our benefits package, really the issue I always hear is the cost of health insurance for those that are paying 20%. So employees that were hired before 2011, they pay 12%. Those hired after are paying 20%. And so if you're in a family plan, you're paying 20%, you know, it's getting close to $500 per month. You know, for example, over the last 3 days, I was out at the fairgrounds doing focus groups with the 3 different highway garages. And, you know, that was one issue that one of their biggest concerns was the cost of health insurance.
And the wage study would go into all that.
The wage study would look at benefits as well. Yeah, I don't think it'd be useful only to look at wages. You kind of look at compensation as a whole.
And the other thing to add on to that, I was self-employed for 25 years, and my family bought our own insurance. And somebody that is offered insurance don't know how lucky they have it. They can say it's high price. Try buying your own ones. You know, yeah, you'll get minimal coverage. You got to ensure that you don't chop a hand off of your head, you know, but, you know, you chop a finger off, who cares?
Chris, your turnover number, 32%, does that include Lasada?
Yes, and next month I have a much more detailed report I can include in my department report for next month, and it shows every department, every type of position, so you can see the turnover, like where it's really hurting. So we are doing some things. So the biggest area is Lasada CNAs. So that is their biggest concern. So we are working with Amanda both on recruitment and retention efforts right now.
If you just withdrew with Lasada from this, what would be your ballpark for our county turnover?
Well,
historically, it's been closer to 5 to 7.
Yeah, I was going to say 7%. Another area we're working is highway. Well, they've had some retention issues.
then each one of our strategic goals, we have, again, with the KPIs, we have county indicators and community indicators. And as Chris performs the comp study, hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll have more benchmark indicators, which we'll be able to kind of compare and see how we rank in some of those things to get an idea, whether benefits packages or wages are good or bad in comparison. Strategic objective B is to study and improve organizational culture. Chris?
Yeah, so, I think culture, obviously is important. It helps with retention, it helps with morale for the county. So what we did is, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Milwaukee Top Places to Work program. Sometimes you'll see businesses advertise that, we're a top place to work, Milwaukee. And essentially that program is run, well, it's not run, but the company's called Energage. They're the ones that administer the survey for the Milwaukee Top Places to Work program. So we used Energage and we did an employee engagement survey a few months ago in March. So we have all the data from that. We set up all the department heads so they could view all their data, kind of see the areas where they could improve engagement, culture in their department. And since we asked them to put together action plans to improve engagement by June 18th. So that's something that department heads are working on. And that's why we met with John Eggerin's highway guys over the last 3 days is part of John assisting him in creating action plans to improve morale in the department. So that's a project ongoing. Part of our agreement with Energage is we did a survey in March. The idea is the department has to create action plans and do those over the next year, and then we'll do another survey in March next year. We'll see if our efforts are working. So based on our last survey, 50% of our employees were engaged. And to earn the award of the Milwaukee Top Place to Work program, those companies are scoring around 58%. So, we're pretty close. So I think it's some of the lower departments, if they're able to improve morale and engagement in their departments, I think, we'll definitely earn the award eventually.
Again, does this include Lasada?
Yes.
Well, if you take Lasada out, I understand that's a problem over there. I don't have any idea how you solve. But if you take that out, what's the problem we're trying to solve?
Well, we have there's morale issues in departments. There's people, good employees leaving just because they have issues.
You just said it's like what, less than 10% turnover. So what's the problem you're trying to solve?
Well, ultimately we're trying to create an environment where people enjoy coming to work. They like working for Oldacton County, and I think there's room to improve. There are a lot of good departments. I think our finance department, they scored in like the 99th percentile. So, they'd be 100% engagement. But there's other, departments where, they were in the 4th percentile, not including Lasada. So clearly there's a lot of issues that can be improved in those areas. A lot of unhappy employees. And sometimes it's hard to make changes unless you have data to back it up. Now we have data to back it up, and we're making, concrete steps to improve those areas.
Okay. Then moving right along, strategic objective C, develop proactive leadership.
Yeah, so this was started last year. We created a leadership cohort. We have about 19 leaders in the program. It was an 18-month course. I believe it ends next month. Essentially, it involved eight monthly sessions. They're like 3-hour sessions facilitated by a professional trainer. And then all the participants also got a one-on-one coaching as part of that. The total cost for that program was around $17,000. But we were able to secure a Wisconsin workforce development grant that brought the county's cost down to about $6,000. And we're working on getting another grant right now, and we should probably know in the next month whether or not we get another grant, and then we'll be looking at creating more leadership opportunities in the county. And we may, for the next approach. We may have a little bit more of a targeted approach to certain departments or certain areas where there was low engagement. As part of the engagement survey, if the supervisor had, I think it was 4 or more direct reports respond, they actually got their own engagement score. So we could see, a list of, 50 supervisors, who was the top rated supervisor, who were the bottom 5. We may have some, maybe take some of the money and provide one-on-one coaching specific for them, or we may be a little bit more targeted towards, LaSada and also Sheriff's Office, because with the last cohort, they all wanted supervisors to be able to participate, but just because of their schedules, they weren't able to participate. Maybe it's a training specifically for those departments so they can have some. So there'll be more work on that probably in the next few months, determining how we're going to put our leadership training money towards those items. Well, succession planning. So this part of our cohort, there was succession planning training. Another option that we are considering is, looking at more of a specific succession planning program for the county, and really what that involved would be identifying positions where we feel are vital, that we have like a backup or someone that could take over if they left. So that's something that we could perhaps do internally, or perhaps, we may get proposals from consultants that could come in and do that. But if we did that, we try to get that approved in the budget for next year.
Just scrolling down, we've included some of the, again, metrics from the employee engagement survey results. And there's just some of these affirmative statements and employees responded to that Chris was elaborating on.
Yeah. And every department had their own specific results that their department had and review, and they can kind of decide what area. That's what we asked the department to come with 1 or 2 action items for each of their departments to kind of improve engagement based on their specific scores.
Chris, can you remind me again what this number means? The 0.034. That's 34% of the employees, or what? Is that a good number or a bad number?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of slice the numbers. One is, what percent of your employees said that statement, and also there's also numbers on sort of how you rank against other comparable municipal organizations. So I'm not quite sure where Jason got that number from.
Yeah, I think what I saw on I think the PowerPoint sent out from Energage was, this was a percentile ranking, as compared to similar governments surveyed. So it wasn't just a straight, 34% of employees, but, where you ranked in comparison to other similar governments who had taken the survey. So these were governments who were, pursuing the same sort of engagement goals. Strategic objective D is to develop and deliver staff training.
So improving employee onboarding. So this is a big project that we're currently working on, is sort of a lot of the HR processes. There's a lot of different systems, and a lot of the work is extremely manual. Our payroll manager is planning to retire in April next year, and she came from the IT world, and she essentially learned payroll. She's been doing payroll for 20-some years for the county, and she is extremely talented at payroll, but also very talented at the IT end. So we've been sort of been able to build some of our HR and payroll infrastructure around her skills. So we've really kind of been able to cheap out and have a lot of different systems, and she can make them work. She can do coding and make the systems all talk together. It's a lot of, so what we feel like we need to do is have, instead of a bunch of different software systems and a bunch of manual processes around the edge to try to make it work, we'd like a fully integrated approach to get one software system that handles, posts our job, it onboards our employees, they fill out all the paperwork, they register for their benefits through that. The system directly talks to our benefit carriers. They do time and attendance and payroll all in the same system. Right now we have applicant tracking, so we post our jobs in one system. We onboard employees, all manual. So we send them onboarding paperwork, and we have to type it in a bunch of different locations. They sign up for their benefits. We have to log into a bunch of different carriers' portals, type all that in. We have 3 or 4 different time and attendance systems. So we have a green shade system that a lot of general employees use. We have the Kronos time and attendance system out of Lasada. Sheriffs and human services have homegrown systems. So I'm kind of talking about how would we replace a payroll manager. We kind of came to the conclusion we almost need to find an IT professional and train them in payroll. It's so complicated to make it work. So we are, we're currently doing demos with vendors to try to find a software solution that would accomplish all of this, is streamline it. It would eliminate a ton of time in manual effort. We were having a demo with ADP. They're one of the largest companies that provides type of software, and they were learning about our processes and our payroll manager does. The ADP employee said, he does this all day, every day. He's never seen a payroll manager that does more manual processes than ours. So there's a lot of room for improvement here. And so we're trying to get a rough budget estimate on how much it would cost to be a fully integrated system. And then we're hoping to be able to get that project approved as part of next year's budget.
Anything else on that objective, Chris, or should we go down to the next one?
Yeah, we can go down to the next one.
This one is improve internal communications.
Yeah, so we haven't really done anything with that one at this point.
So that one is not started at this time. Again, we have a metric from the engagement survey about how well informed folks feel about decisions at the county. And then strategic objective F, recruit and retain qualified county employees.
Yeah, so study, track, and improve employee retention. So I'll bring my detailed report to this meeting next month so you can see those real kind of pain points. And currently HR is actively working with Public Works and Lasada specifically on CNAs for retention. So there's ongoing work with that currently. So that's really all I have for this objective.
Qualified candidates, that's further. Just have some metrics about FTEs.
And I will say for finding qualified candidates, our new HR business partner, she has past experience directly sourcing candidates. So currently our process is we post it on our job board, and that automatically gets posted to LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, and some other sites. But for sort of key positions, our HR business partner is good to essentially use LinkedIn, and they have LinkedIn Recruiter Lite, which is a premium service. It's not expensive, but they have experience seeking out and trying to find good candidates that aren't necessarily looking, but to see if they'd be interested in. So one kind of key position that we're working on now is our director of nursing at Lasada, which is a very important position. That person just resigned, and so we'll be doing some advertising that through our typical methods, but we'll be working on doing direct sourcing as well to find good candidates. And we'll also be doing some direct sourcing for CNAs as well.
Can you tell me, did that person resign because they're getting a more different job elsewhere?
Yeah, they'll be working not in the nursing home, more of the hospital type field.
Probably more money, more opportunity.
I think COVID burnout was certainly a factor.
Yes, COVID burnout.
It's been a lot of work at Lasada over the last 14 months, and I think that certainly contributed to our decision to seek other employment.
On your FTE number, about how many contractors do you think you have on staff for different locations?
Well, I know we contract with the health director at Lasada. and then in terms of other contract employees, transit, I mean, contract
keeping services at the nursing home.
Contract.
Jail kitchen staff or contracted staff. And there's some human services staff that are contracted employees as well.
Do you have, maybe related to that, do you have a staff person at Lasada from Human Resources?
So we did. We had a full-time HR journalist out there. That position was eliminated by the director of the nursing home. The idea was to create a sort of in-house training type position, but based on their low census, Amanda, the director out there, felt like she could not fill that position. That position is currently vacant. So me and my team, we have been providing more assistance to Lasada.
Did that position report to you?
Or directly
to your budget? Maybe at a later time, something to consider would be to have that be a staff position assigned to that. I mean, that's a large department. And put it under your budget.
Yeah, and I think, we just created this HR business partner position within the last 6 months or so and recruited to fill it so that, HR has been able to provide a little bit more HR resource out in Lasada than historically had been. The primary focus of that previous position was just almost, it was like 80% of the job was just churning through applicants, because you're constantly in a hiring and recruitment process for certified nurses aides. So that was that was part of the administrator's thought process, was to say, would we be better off doing an in-house training program and kind of grow our own resources for certified nurses aides rather than trying to find people off the street. Maybe they have a little bit more affinity to do the organization if we train them up and do things like that. So I think that's still in the works and will still happen, but the census is a bit low and still being impacted by COVID. So she's elected not to move in that direction and just kind of put our resources towards getting the facility, the census up, and getting the financial stability back in place there.
That position was created, the HR full-time position at Lasada actually had a full-time assistant director out there, and who was actually Amanda. And then when Amanda was promoted to the director of the Lasada campus, she hired a new assistant director, and that position just didn't work out. So that assistant director position was eliminated, and she created an HR position. And that assistant director did a lot of the HR components, but just eliminated that, made it HR, and then she just eliminated that HR position, and she was planning on creating this training position.
Excuse my lack of understanding of organization in the county, but to whom does the Lasada director report?
To me. The administrator?
Yeah.
To me.
So you could make that change if you chose to.
Yeah, and it's part of an ongoing discussion we've been having out there at Lasada.
I think it would be wise, when you see all the moving parts that are on with the COVID pandemic, that needs to stop or go away. The lack thereof of warm bodies to hire, the labor issue, I think after this free government money goes away, so once we get into 2022, I think you could address it. But until then, I don't think there's any point to address it. There's just so many things that are out of your control because of the two things I had just said.
I think you're exactly right, Supervisor Winker. I think we're trying to find a period of stability out there, and then we'll
until you're stable.
I think they're coming out of COVID. Although I think in general society we're probably 3-4 months ahead of where they are at the nursing home, just because of the regulations and things that they have to follow because of Medicare and federal government, state level requirements for care and things like that. So I know that's I have ongoing discussions with the administrator, and I think we're trying to get things stabilized out there. We've got a recruitment of a significant position, the director of nursing position, which is really a key linkage between the administrator and the nursing staff at that facility. So, we want to recruit that one. We want to get it right, and then we'll move forward on some of these other initiatives. And I think in the interim, HR is stepping in to fill some of the gaps on the personnel side.
All right, and the last objective here, G, is to improve employee recognition. Chris, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so for staff recognition, just early 2020, just before COVID, I put together an ad hoc employee recognition committee. So I got my 10 employees from all different departments, and they kind of brainstormed different things the county could do, and ultimately their number one thing that they thought would be helpful would be create a peer-to-peer employee recognition program. So sort of this committee's idea of employees. So we did launch a peer-to-peer recognition program I think in February this year. And since we're doing the quarterly drawings, I think we had maybe 30 submissions in the program, and I think we drew 5 winners and gave them gift cards. And, we had pretty good participation in the first quarter, and we're planning to do it quarterly and kind of see how it goes. So perhaps, within the next year, we could reconvene the committee and kind of, report out on how their initiative went. If they have any other new ideas. Let's see. Group bonus. Yeah, so bonuses, flexibility bonus steps. Yeah, so I think some of this could potentially be tied in if, we do a compensation study. We can also probably take a look at, the steps and the bonus systems as well. But we haven't really started any work on that.
Yeah, and we'll have the metrics for the bonus program the next quarter. I got some of those late in terms of number of employees and all the departments that are utilizing it too. So just one last metric there from the survey. So that is section 5 of the strategic plan. If there's any more questions for Chris or any other thoughts on the direction we are going, we're happy to hear those. All right. Thanks, Chris. We'll move on then to section 6 here to keep this along. So the last strategic planning goal here is to streamline county processes and build a performance excellence culture. So, our future state was to have Ozaukee County has a performance excellence culture built on communication, information, and innovation year-round, and ability to navigate the budgetary constraints with responsible planning and informed decision-making using meaningful policy and budgetary data analysis. That's a mouthful. I think I wrote that, unfortunately. So I think Chad, our budget director, was in on this as well. I don't think he's on the call, but Jason and I can probably tackle this. But strategic objective A here is to strengthen our long-term financial and budget process. So the first tactic was to develop a framework for connecting the budget with the strategic plan and priorities. So that will be done by Chad, our budget director. In the next budget, we're looking at ways to identify how we do our budget planning and what part of the budget is allocated to the strategic plan. So we'll be working on that this year yet and have something for the 2022 or 23 budget there. Tactic 2 was to address funding deferrals for capital and one-time special projects. As you all know, and seen the highlights here, we implemented a new capital project funding process in the 2019 budget. So we're allowing departments to submit a project proposal and evaluating those proposals basically on 4 criteria: value and efficiency and modernization and service. So I think we're in our 3rd year there. And so then the intent then is to leverage that for the next budget to develop a true 5-year capital improvement plan that we can present to the county board and to the oversight committees. We also have number 3 is to balance fiscal restraints and fund priorities with efficiency. So this is in progress. We are looking at always improving our communication with the budget and to make the information easier. If you may remember, the finance department developed a PAFR in 2019 for easier understanding of the county's financial reporting. We also implemented a grant analysis form for oversight committee approval requests, and as well as we're looking at standardizing a policy analysis template for oversight committee reviews later this year.
And I think this process in itself is really I think this is a way to increase the visibility of these types of things, and I think you'll see it more in the performance measurement piece as well. So.
And the last, is there a question?
This is all, you know, we made an investment in this software. It's called OpenGov. We use it to complete our budget. And basically what it allows us to do is put all this information out on the web. So when Jason references the website and the links out there, those are things that any member of the public, any board member can go out and check those numbers, and they'll be updated on a quarterly basis. So.
And the last tactic under this goal was to evaluate ways to share equipment, develop partnerships, and seek mergers when appropriate. You know, this is probably an ongoing strategy throughout the life of this plan. So we have in progress 50%, but you may or may not know, Transit Services launched their cross-county partnership in April of this year with Washington County, where they're able to cross county line boundaries and give folks seamless transportation from county to county. We've also, DOA, partnered with Family Promise this year and secured $1.8 million grant for a homeless shelter, as well as we think there may be future opportunities as part of the discussion earlier about federal funding that may be coming in. You know, there may be opportunities to work with local municipalities on broadband or other, you know, initiatives that federal funding allows. So then we have for the indicators here, we've got the annual amount of capital project requests. As you can see, it was about $2.5 million in 19 and 20. 21, it was about $4 million. And then we have some metrics on the amount that was funded each year, the percentage of capital project fundings approved. Obviously, this doesn't include the borrowing that was done in the last year as well to fund some of the bigger facilities projects. So we also have just some other metrics in terms of the fund balance. These are pulled from the finance department's performance metrics, annual county expenses, annual tax levy, percent to debt equalized value, and then annual sales tax revenue. So again, we're trying to mesh, our performance indicators with our strategic objectives. And B is exactly what we're doing today, which is to develop and implement a performance management system. So we've worked to develop key performance indicators and metrics across all departments. And we are, in our second year of fully reporting out on annual performance metrics for all departments countywide. We want to ensure that, that these performance metrics guide, oversight committee decision-making. So again, we're reporting out on these today. And then down the road, we hope to develop, better shared benchmarks, looking at, the ICMA and some of the other umbrella organizations, and try to find comparables and see how we, how we rank in terms of our efficiency and our output metrics. So we approximately have around 300 metrics, or 250 and up to 300 now, performance metrics countywide. So we're continuing to massage those. And then strategic objective C, this was one of the most highly ranked in terms of prioritization for the county board, which was to simplify and improve internal and external communication and the information provided. So we have a few tactics here that we're working on to better improve communication. Obviously, number one here, to proper focus on policy issues at at the committee and county board level. We're using OpenGov to standardize much of our committee reports and report outs, as Jason said, that we can share with the county board and public that are live, at all times. Working to schedule department meetings a year out. We are on a regular schedule now. We have bi-monthly department head meetings. As of now, they've been all Zoom, but they're going pretty well. Also looking at standardizing, the presentation of projects and reports, again, utilizing OpenGov and other avenues. And we have better prepare new county board members. Again, that's an ongoing process. And lastly, provide clear and accurate information for the county board. So we're also trying to refine the level of data provided to inform decision makers as well. So we hope to, have a satisfaction survey maybe in the next year or two with county board employees in terms of information, communication, and the like. So that is that strategic goal. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? No, thank you. It's good work. I mean, I think we're doing a lot of good things, moving in the right direction. Any other questions, discussions? All right, thank you very much.
I think we have a few performance.
Yeah, and do we, in the interest of time, do we want to just have the department heads do about 5 minutes, just kind of quickly sharing their metrics, or, I don't want to.
Yeah, we have other discussion items.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so we have the 4 departments here that report here. We have treasurer, HR, and corporation counsel. They have performance metrics that they prepared. Perhaps we can start with corporation counsel. I see Rhonda is on the line. Just if you want to, highlight some of the metrics and things that have changed in the last year. Again, we have a table, and then as well as dashboard graphs to kind of help illustrate the metrics for the departments. So Rhonda, with that, I'll turn it over to you, and you just want to highlight some of the metrics in the last year.
Okay. Well, you can see our numbers between 19 and 20. Some things have maybe gone up a little, some things have gone down, in some cases a bit significantly. Notably last year, our referrals for CHIPS petitions really was probably at the lowest it's been since I've taken over this role in the last 8 years plus. And I think I attribute that to DHS trying to do things more informally, trying to work with parents on an informal basis rather than go to court. But I think also last year it was due to the fact that children were at home, we're not in school, we're not as much out in the community. So things that needed to come to the attention of DHS didn't necessarily get there. So it's hard, in a pandemic year with children isolated in their homes to really know for sure. Other than that, it's also difficult to quantify in terms of performance statistics, what a corporation counsel's office does. We have here the routine things we do in terms of the human services, petitions, contract review, things like that. But there's so many miscellaneous odd things that come through our office every year. So it's hard to really capture in full what that looks like. So these are just the things that are more measurable because there's more of them. Our child support performance remains strong. It's been strong for a very, very long time, probably in the history that I've worked for the county, which has been over 20 years now. So that continues to look good. Our funding for child support is somewhat tied to our performance to a certain degree. So that is always important to keep those numbers high. Does anyone have any questions about our numbers here?
Just one thing, paternity establishment cases, there's 108 down to 0. Is it not listed?
For 2020, there's nothing listed. You're right. And I'm not sure what happened there. I would have to talk to Rick about that because that 0 is not correct. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that looks to be, that may be an error on our end. So we have, here would be the,
there it is, okay.
It's on that. So I'll reach out to him to see what the number of cases there was.
Our small claims collection was down for some reason last year. Might have also been due to people perhaps unemployed to an extent maybe through the state debt collection program, we just didn't have access to as many assets or resources that people had. But I would anticipate that should even out and return to prior levels.
So again, we have all of these metrics utilizing the dashboards here, and these are available again on the county administrator's page under performance management. So you can check out any of the departments here. So any questions for Rhonda? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next department. Okay. County clerk, is Julie or Lisa there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Ballot styles were increased, obviously, because we had 4 elections in 2020 versus 2 in 19. Same thing with the number of ballots printed, 4 elections versus 2, and obviously April and November of last year were huge elections. Marriage licenses were pretty close, surprisingly, with COVID. We did okay for 2020. And passports were way down because we were obviously closed for almost a year. Because passports were not being processed at the U.S. Department of State either.
We have all of those metrics here and dashboards as well. And take a look at any time. And let's move on. Thank you, Lisa. We can move on to HR then. And Chris just has six basic metrics here for the performance metrics.
Yeah, so health insurance loss ratio for this year, we're trending probably around 82, 85%. Number of FTEs, that's a calculation that's done by our payroll department. You know, 2020, probably one thing that would affect that is, you know, we brought on like contact tracers, you know, with COVID, turnover rate. I'll have a much more detailed report for you next month, so you can kind of see the pain points on that. Wellness participation, that always seems to hover around, you know, the mid 300s. Workers' comp claims. I can tell you for 2021, we're trending pretty good right now. Total, you know, the last few years has been around 200,000, 240,000, 240,000. 2021 right now, I think it's through April, we're at 16,000. So, you know, that can be, you know, one person trips on a stick and has had surgery, and that can skyrocket. So,
can I just say, so turnover rate actually is a little better last year than the year before. So that's surprising, I guess, what we've been saying. And so the number of full-time employees, right? Is that
no, it's just full-time equivalent. So even part-timers, you kind of get their number of hours in.
Oh, so that might have gone up based on like COVID.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, again, I was thinking, oh, well, we got more employees. So, but okay.
And it's probably, yeah, more temporary or seasonal or, you know,
Chris, is there any way you could up the participation in the wellness thing? I know how I'm insured. I'm required to do wellness, and I'm a wellness guy. I think that's, you know, if you don't start with trying to stay healthy, only bad things are going to happen. Is there any way we could increase to, you know, obviously you're at about 50% of the labor market or the labor that is working for the counties. Yeah. You know, I'd certainly like to see that rate a lot higher. You know, you would hope people would want to look at wellness.
Well, you know, one common thing that, you know, the government and private sector will do, they'll tie health insurance premium to your participation in the wellness program. So certainly if we moved everyone to 20% and said you can't get 12 unless you complete the prior year's program, I would suspect we get a lot more participation.
And that's something that we've kicked around. You know, we have about 400 employees.
I think it's probably around 400 that actually are eligible to participate in the wellness program.
Yeah, and then
spouses.
And then the spouses are eligible. So we have about 1,000. We generally have about 1,000 lives that are insured, but that includes children.
Yeah. So usually we're right around. Usually 60% start the program, and usually about 50% actually complete it. But if we were to tie it to health insurance premiums, I'd be curious to see, you know, what
know mine is.
Yeah, yeah. You know, we provide an incentive to do it, right? We provide money incentive to do it, but we don't. We haven't gone down the path of being more. I hate to say punitive, but you know, you say but it's to me, it's always been completely logical. You don't play the wellness game, you pay more for your health insurance, right? And we don't ask people to do.
And there's a direct correlation to your health. You would think more people would just have an interest in trying to stay healthy.
So, yeah, something we've constantly discussed. I think if we receive a good health insurance renewal this year, which we're anticipating, I think we might have some ability to be a bit more creative than we could be when we were seeing higher premiums 2 or 3 years ago. Point well taken.
Any questions, other questions related to these numbers?
Thank you. Last performance metrics then are the Treasurer's Department. Josh, are you there?
Yep.
Good morning, everyone.
A lot of dollars.
Yeah. You guys haven't guessed. I like to track a savages. Last year, I sat down and worked out what I can track immediately. A lot of the things that you guys are seeing on the finance report, this is what it looks like for our annual, and then what you're seeing, we send in our quarterlies up to administration so they can tally these numbers and get this ready for you. So you can obviously see sales tax is definitely higher for fiscal year 2019. Our investments declined given the rate environment last year, COVID, the whole thing. But we're still able to hit budget, just throwing that out there. So I'm not so sure about that this year. Our revolving loan fund balance, you can see that total amount decreases, but cash increased. Obviously, the business is paying down their RLFs, which you'll see that change this next year because we've effectively zeroed that out. So except that we're still collecting it. It's just not in that proportionate account anymore. So we'll watch the cash as that goes. Tax certificate balance largely remained the same. Not that what I'll report to you guys today is a really, a sizable decline as opposed to the prior year. So, it really depends on when our taxpayers start paying down their late taxes and just kind of how that all goes. Given everything from last year, things kind of happen a little later. So, but all in all, we still saw a small decline, 3,000. Our annual cash balance was definitely increased, almost $3 million the prior year. This cash is tracked based on all of the accounts that I have direct access to. I track all of our cash every month that I can visibly see to make sure that we maintain our collateralization and our safety of funds. So that's an easy metric to get you guys. Accounting investment return on interest there, 280,000 as opposed to 633. Again, 2019 was probably my funnest year for collecting interest funds. Just throwing that out there, it was great. Not, kind of stabilizing, if you want to call it that. We're entering a downtime as far as interest goes. The investment balances was about $2 million higher from the prior year. Note that all of our accounts bear interest except for our payroll account, our petty cash account, our main checking account. So we're making money on every account. So that's why we tally up all of that. Now keep in mind though that this investment balance does not necessarily meet that those interest dollars above at 280,000 because I'm not reconciling every account every month. I don't have my hands on every account. This is just what I'm able to see, view, and track as far as dollars that are earning interest. Our interest revenues for delinquent taxes declined a little bit, as did our penalty revenues, which should go up fairly close to lockstep. But I don't find that to be necessarily a bad thing, because our taxpayers are paying their taxes. But on the bright side, even if this sounds a little cold, the fact that it might sound a little cold, but we may budget on that too. Delinquent taxes in December, that percentage went down to 3.58. Can reference that above to our tax certificate balance too, coming down just that little bit. Online tax bill payments, that should have been changed. I think I brought that in by Jason. I thought that was.
We'll fix that, Josh. If it's, okay. It was 11.5 1 year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like 11.4. I think we were up around 14.
Okay.
I think we're going to see more increased use of electronic payments for taxes as we go, or alternative methods instead of coming into the office. Tax bill preparation, you guys can see we had more parcels created last year, so more development still occurred. We're at 42,000 from 41,900. Issuance of tax certificates did go up last year. Again, I put that more towards everything that happened last year. But again, I'll present some good information today for you. Our assessment rolls, we always have to issue 16. That's a metric that I track, because if we don't issue 16 assessment rolls for all of our municipalities, we've got a problem. Okay. So it has to be done. Same thing with filing the SOA with the state. Entering that state manufacturing, we saw we had 350 parcels as opposed to the 263 from the prior year. And issuance of preliminary assessment rolls again, well, I think that was just added in twice. XML rolls, that's what we're submitting to the state so they can get all of the assessment rolls inside of their system. Okay, has to be 16. Again, if it's not, there's a huge problem. Penalty revenues, we're down to in there twice again. Settlement computation, this is however many settlements I prepare annually with all of our taxing jurisdictions and how many times I do it. There are 121 settlements that have to be completed annually at this county, and it is done every time to the penny. So, and obviously the charting there, you can kind of utilize the graphs to see your increases, decreases in more chart format. What I like to really showcase in all of that is the RLF cash balance. You see that going up while the loan balance itself is going down. Nice little way to tie that out. That works out really nice. But otherwise, does anybody have any questions?
Questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. Absolutely.
And Mr. Chairman, that's all we have. And just thank you to the department heads and staff for putting these together. And obviously we're looking to build out a data set here that, shows more comparison after 5 years or so. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I think that's very beneficial, Aldous.
Yeah, so then we'll come back. Strategic planning, I think we're thinking quarterly.
Yeah, quarterly for the plan. And I think maybe for, metrics, maybe either semi-annually or annually, depending on how, oversight committees feel it.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Good work. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. Back to action items. Action item 7B we're on. Resolution amending section 4.04 2E and I of the Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual pertaining to sick leave reimbursement. So that's resolution 7012, is that correct? Okay. Not listed on the agenda, but that's what it is right now.
So Rhonda and I made some additional edits this week and even some this morning. This morning I printed off an updated resolution and passed it out to y'all.
Yeah, it's this one. One at the bottom, I think. Yeah. I think that's that one on the bottom.
Oh, it's gonna be all your papers. Okay, so just to give you a little background, employees currently, they're able to get reimbursed for sick leave in 2 ways. One is cash payouts. So if they work for the county for at least 10 years and then they leave, then they get, you know, say they have $1,000 worth of sick time built up, we pay out $500. Now, if they're terminated for poor performance, they wouldn't get any. Just if someone leaves in good standing, they get 50%. The other current way, in terms of cash payout, is if they are able to accrue up to 12,000 hours, anything over that can get cashed out at the end of the calendar year. So let's say at the end of the calendar year, they have 1,210 hours. That 10 hours at the end of the year payroll will go to that employee and say, do you want to get cashed out for half of that, which would be 5 hours, then we can cash that out. Now, the other method that employee can get reimbursed for their sick leave is by the county creating escrow account. So in order to do that currently, the employee would have to be employed for at least 10 years of service, and then also have a certain number of unused sick hours in their bank. So, you know, so someone working in this building, they would have to have at least 10 years with the county, and then they would have to have at least 480 hours of sick leave in their bank. And so let's say that, and then we essentially create an escrow account. It's all pre-tax dollars. So let's say that 480 hours, they would get 45% of that, whatever that dollar amount would be, and then we create that was an escrow account. So it's all pre-tax dollars. They can use it for eligible health related expenses. So let's say they pay a premium amount of $500 1 month. They can submit a receipt to the county. We look at that, we say, yep, that's the eligible reimbursement cost, and then we reimburse them that $500, all again tax-free reimbursement to them. So essentially what this resolution amendment does, it really does 3 substantial things. One, so it adds one additional requirement to establish an escrow account. So currently you need 10 years and you need, you know, the 480 hours built up. However, this resolution is adding one additional requirement. The third one would be you'd have to reach the WRS, Wisconsin Retirement System's minimum retirement age. So for a general employee, it would be 55. For someone in the protected status, like a deputy sheriff, would be 50. And the idea is we really see this as a retirement benefit for those employees that are staying with the county until they are retirement of age. And we didn't feel like it really made sense to have someone work for, instead of get hired at the county at age 20, work until age 30, and then go work for Sheboygan County. We didn't feel like it really made sense to establish a health insurance escrow account for them. That'd be the first major change. The second major change would be eliminating any cash out option. So that would eliminate, so if you're with the county 10 years, let's say you work for the county 10 years, you're 40 years old, you have enough hours banked, we wouldn't give you that option of the 50% cash out. If you meet at 1,200 hours and you get 10 additional hours, you're not going to get that 50% cash out. And then the third substantial change would be, so let's say you retire, you meet all you have the minimum number of hours, 10 years. We establish an escrow account for you. What happens sometimes is someone will have an escrow account, they'll spend it down. Let's say they have $200 left in an escrow account, but then they haven't touched it for 10 years. We have a number of employees that do that, and ultimately we're saying that if you don't use your escrow account for a 3-year time period, the funds will be forfeited and the account will be permanently closed. This little county is not having to track this as a liability for, you know, decades if someone's not using their remaining escrow.
It seems sensible, and we don't want to give employees incentive to leave us when they're young.
Chris, how much sick leave is it for you get per year?
So it's based on the type of position they have. If it was a former union position, so say a highway operator or a former union, it's 12 hours or 12 days per year. 12 days a year. 12 days per year, or other positions that were not previously a union position were 16 days per year.
And if they took those 12 days, they'd be paid during those 12 days, correct?
If they're sick, right, they could use that pay time.
So, but you allow a carryover. And for a person to have 400 to use, well, the purpose of the carryover, I suppose, is in case next year you had an injury or you were off for a month, you'd have some sick leave.
Right. I mean, currently the county offers long-term disability, which there's a 90-day waiting period. We don't currently offer short-term disability. But, you know, again, we allow the carryover sick time in case something were to happen, you get paid for that.
So after a few years and you've accrued enough, you could be paid for that 90-day waiting period through your sick leave.
Yeah.
So sick leave, it appears based on this, sick leave is in fact a savings account, financial account, right? Because you're paying them. They've already been paid for that time. And now you're paying them again for that time. And I would think, gee, once you quit or retire or you're gone, this just goes away. And I think that I don't understand why you'd have a cap, why you would ever let people accrue more than, pick a number, 90 days of sick time. And then, you know, because that would be the most they would need. I mean, this just looks to me like, gee, over the years, if I don't use my sick time, then I get paid. Now I'm making $20 an hour. I earned this sick pay when I was making $7 an hour. So when I quit, I get paid the 20. I get paid those hours at my current rate, not the rate that I quote earned them. So I'm just this whole thing. I've never worked for the government. I've never been, you know. So I have a different perspective. I just think this is kind of a excessively generous benefit.
It is a nice benefit. Our employees enjoy it. It encourages, you know, long-term retention.
Yeah, I mean, it was created for two reasons. One, the county has never offered a short-term disability policy, right? So I think part of the goal is to get, you know, if you have 12 weeks of FMLA, you know, we'd like employees to think, well, I don't want to willy-nilly use my sick time, you know, in case something happens. So, you know, if you need to get to that 90-day long-term disability, or if you need to get through the FMLA portion of your, you know, of your leave, if you're out on family medical leave that doesn't qualify for long-term disability, that was it. It's an incentive not to use your sick time, number one, and then it's also it's also our short-term disability policy, and it's been in place as long as I've been with Ozaukee County. So
I get it. I mean, you don't want people to be sick, and if you give me 12-day sick time, there are a lot of employees that just can use 12 days of sick time, whether they're sick or not.
Correct. And that's why I believe it was, and I wasn't here when it was initially created, but that's why it was initially created, to provide the disincentive to use sick time, to say, you know. Now the other thing is you're not paid out at 100% of your wage, except for hours accrued over 1,200 hours. So you know, you said you earned it at 7 and you're paid out at 20. If you have, I don't know the numbers off the, I think if you have 780 hours on the books, you get 50% of that value in your escrow. So it's reduced by a certain percentage.
So the
is that table?
Yeah, so it's based on how many days you've built up. You either get 40% of the value, 50% of the value, 60%, or 65.
Let me know. But that's that's the background. It was created to say, and I think we've talked about this at a couple of different times in the past. And do we move to a PTO type arrangement? And I think when we talked about it with the finance committee and the executive committee at that time, they said, well, we like this approach because it provides that disincentive to sort of, if I don't feel good today, I'm just going to call it sick type thing. Now, there's employees that do. That happens. But I know, it's certainly a benefit that many employees enjoy. And yeah, I think the other ancillary benefit that I've seen over time is, it does allow us to create some churn in longer term positions where somebody might work until they're Medicare eligible. I think this provides us an opportunity to disperse some retirements in areas where we might have longer term employees, and it gives us the ability to shift and do different things in our organization. So that's the background.
The other comment on this, obviously, if the vast majority of employers out there are offering this, we have to remain competitive in the labor market. I don't see that we have a choice.
It's pretty typical.
Yeah, and most organizations, they'll establish, work with the vendor to establish a health reimbursement arrangement, which is a common employee benefit. So I think the next agenda item would be I'm recommending a contract with diversified benefits. They're based in Hartland, Wisconsin, and they do HRAs with a lot of organizations, government, but a lot of private sector companies were essentially diversified with, instead of a retiree submitting a bunch of receipts to my staff trying to figure out what's eligible, what's not, and then putting together a check request. Like we probably spend maybe up to 15 hours per month just taking receipts and creating checks, and just a lot of busy work. We're diversified benefits for I think $350 per month could take all that liability off our shoulders of us trying to determine what's an eligible cost. So then all the nitty-gritty work of HR and finance, creating checks and sending checks out. So yeah, HRAs are definitely not uncommon.
Mr. Chair, I move for.
Okay. You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion second. Vice Supervisor Larson. Supervisor Ritchie, yes.
Need to clarify two things. The 90-day disability insurance. Now, are there various health cases where people would be denied disability?
County staff, we don't get into that. We use MetLife, and basically the employee applies to them, and they determine.
But there is a clinical review component to that where they would,
somebody could somehow get sick for 6 months and not get disability.
I think in maybe certain specific situations. Yeah.
Second.
But if an employee gets cancer, obviously they're going to be out for a long period of time. I think that's pretty straightforward. We've had a few cases, I think, over the years where it's not as cut and dried. Yeah.
I think I've only seen maybe one case where.
But there is a medical clinical review component to the eligibility.
Really, the county employees, we don't get into the weeds of determining eligibility, and we use that insurance goodbye.
Yeah. So you apply, your doc fills out the paperwork, they send it into MetLife. MetLife goes through their process.
They come to the amount of your salary.
Oh, would it be 60%?
Yeah.
60%.
60%.
But they can also supplement with 6 up to a certain amount as well.
An employee, when he's at 1,200 hours, choose to just keep banking it so he's up to 2,000 hours. He has a choice to do that. Okay. And then the last one is, where is the money budget for the situation where they're over 1,200 hours or whatever, and now you're putting money into some escrow? Where is that?
So it's tracked as a liability in our financial statements, right? So anybody who's Now this will change the policy a little bit, right? Because we're potentially increasing the age limits. So it's tracked as a liability in our financial statements. In some departments, it's budgeted for, but you know, in general, we don't budget. We don't budget for it unless we're assured of a retirement that's going to occur when we're preparing the budget. If that makes sense, especially in smaller departments, because then we would be, you know, you're kind of budgeting tax levy for things that may or may not occur. Yeah, you know, we don't want to say Jason's potential sick leave escrow is $50,000. So let's budget $50,000. You know, it's basically handled through the financial statements and through fund balances. Except, and I think the sheriff puts a little bit of money aside. Facade, I think, puts a little bit. So larger departments will do that, but smaller departments, it would.
So that money isn't invested somewhere in your escrow or something. It's just...
No, it's just recognized as a liability on the financial statements.
What percentage of people, like right now, are your qualification of that for that? For how many?
You have an idea of that? I don't know off the top of my head.
First, you have to have $1,200, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's analyzed every year when we're calculating the liability based on
I think
factors currently in the PNP. But in terms of raw number, I'm not sure.
Be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly a report that we could try to. We know how long people have been here, and we know what their sick leave balances are. So, and that's how it's that's obviously how it's calculated in terms of our financial statements. So I think it'd be pretty easy to pull out a gross liability number, but again, it's a liability because it may or may not occur. You know, someone may work here 20 years and go on to another position and not be eligible for the escrow.
All right, that's suggested. In my situation, when I retired, I had $2,300. But in the federal government, that's been considered as if you worked another year and 2 months towards your retirement calculations.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 5-0. Action item C, contract with Diversified Benefit Services for health reimbursement arrangement administrative services. So we just explaining.
Yeah. So again, right now, you know, our staff is trying to determine what the IRS deems as the eligible reimbursement requirement. We're getting receipts, and we're spending a good amount of time every month doing this. It's a lot of manual labor between HR and finance. Diversified Benefits, they administer HR accounts. One of the primary, one of their things they do. The cost is it's like $4.50 per retiree for escrow accounts. So I mean, right now, based on our current numbers, we have 82 retiree escrow accounts. So we're estimating it'd be a little over $350 per month. So that's how many current escrow accounts we have. However, probably, I think almost half of those are really small amounts that haven't been used in years. That would probably get closed based on that haven't been used in 3 or more years. So our plan would be, we'd be sending certified mailings to these retirees, letting them know their current balance and the fact that, it's not used within a 3-year period. It's going to be closed if I give them to the end of this year. Chance to use it. They have a couple $100 left. So yeah, this again, this would take a lot of manual work off county employees. I'd say 10 to 15 hours per month. The cost is very reasonable, and it also eliminates any liability of the county trying to determine what is the cost of eligible reimbursement.
And I think when we looked at it, that's really the liability piece could be significant. So I think this leaves us. So potentially significant liability.
And Diversified Benefits, they're a local company based in Heartland. I've worked with them in the past. They have very good customer service. And it'll be nice for the employees as well. They'll be able to log in their own portal and they'll be able to see exactly how much money they have left in their escrow account. And it's not like we forward all the money to Diversified. We would just, basically reimburse based on when, they probably send us monthly reports on how much we would have to pay.
Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Strong, motion to approve as second.
Second.
Supervisor Washington, second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries 5-0. Action item D, resolution amending section 4.107 of the Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual, repealing the COVID-19 hazard pay policy, which is resolution 7026.
So the hazard pay policy was a policy that was only effective last year through the end of the year. If you may remember, we provided hazard pay bonuses to certain departments, SADA employees, sheriff's employees, public health employees, and some human services employees. But at this point, it's not applicable to anything. And that all those hazard pay bonuses were reimbursed, but it's COVID available money. So this is just kind of getting a policy manual to remove it.
Do you have a ballpark figure how much that was?
Well, I think it was 400 some thousand.
So we're getting rid of the hazard pay policy for COVID, but we're getting $2.5 million from the state to take care of that. So seems to go in the opposite directions. Any discussion or questions on this motion? So we have a motion to a second. Second by Supervisor Richard. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? None. All right. Moving right along. Resolution action item E, amending section 4.107 of the Ozaukee County Policy and Procedure Manual, creating a dog-friendly workplace policy. That would be resolution 7030.
Yeah, so how this one came up was the district attorney approach, I believe, Jason, and just, they have some cases where they have child victims of crime, and, when they're in the courtroom, other court systems will sometimes have a dog in there to kind of help comfort the child. And so the DA just wanted to get thoughts from the administration on that. And then we thought, well, we might as well kind of, we're looking at a dog for the court system. Not that uncommon for dogs to be allowed in the workplace for general employees. So we might as well look at the situation for both. So I drafted this policy. We sent it to Aegis. We have them for many of our insurance lines. So I asked them to have their legal team review it. And really, there are only the two concerns which could happen is one, which is basically the dog bite. So if a dog were to bit some of the general public, that would be handled by our general liability. If the dog bit current employees, the only remedy would be through workers' comp. So really, those would really be the only two liabilities I would foresee. So essentially, this policy would allow an employee to bring a dog into their workspace. Essentially, it would have to be okay with the coworkers nearby. It have to get approved by the manager and department head. Even if this is approved, I'm not sure how much it would actually be used. It would have to be, the right situation of the employee wanting to do it, their coworkers being supportive as well as the department head.
Are there any other counties in Wisconsin that do this?
I'm not aware about other counties that do it. If an employee wants to do it, part of the application process, so the form would be, how are you going to secure the dog? Like, for instance, I know like Amazon, their headquarters in Seattle, Washington, they allow dogs for their employees, but either has to be in an office with the door closed and a baby gate, or if they don't have either of those, the dog would have to be leashed in the workspace. But probably, something similar to that, we require their plan and keeping the dog contained to their workspace.
Where would service dogs fall under this scenario?
Well, we kind of thought that we require like the dog have some sort of for training, like a comfort dog or a training dog, but you know, how many people's dogs are actually certified trained? And that kind of training really is not cheap. So if we were going to require like a training dog or a comfort dog certification, like why even bother with the policy?
We've had employees who have dogs, and I think this, from my perspective, this falls outside of this policy. I just know anecdotally when we're in the midst, about this time last year when public health was all hands on deck, upstairs in this building was pretty much shut down. There were a handful of employees who they brought their dogs into work, and it really was it's like a esprit de corps. It was a uplifting feeling for the people that have the puppers running around, and I think it was so I think that's part of the reasons why employers say you could bring your dog. Dogs make me happy.
To be clear, though, we could do that. We could serve the request of the DA and not do the rest of this if we want, right? So, Supervisor Richard.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think with the service dog, that might be a federal requirement that you have to allow a person with a service.
Yeah, that's an accommodation an employer would have to make.
But I agree. I got written. It's a giant leap from a comfort dog for child victims to dog-friendly workplace. I would support a policy that would allow for a comfort dog or the attorney's office for the case that they've made here. But I'm not open to opening it up for the whole.
Why is that?
Why is that? I don't know. Maybe it was because when I was 3 years old, I had convulsions over a dog. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
But I have
there's not a policy reason.
Well, I don't come up to it. And the same case where you had something about allergic. If an employee is allergic to the dog, it has to be arrangements made. Well, not for the employee.
Yeah.
It has the allergy.
Yeah. And ultimately, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, it's up to the department head, and clearly, if someone has an allergy or makes a complaint, they stop doing it. I mean, really, if the employee wants to do it, all the coworkers want to do it, and the department head wants to do it, I don't.
Yeah, we kind of view it as if there's agreement, and
which employees get to go in the building where they don't have some association with the public. I mean, most of our employees are here to serve the public. So I'm not sure how many will be isolated to have their dog somewhere. That happened when the public was not in the building. But now the public is in the building. So again, it's like doing the opposite of what the Supreme Court seems to be doing. They have a general case and they narrow the decision. In this case, we had a narrow request. We suddenly have a real general approach, and I'd like to narrow it back down.
But we've also had we do have people who bring their dogs to work. It's happened. Someone gets a new puppy, they bring it in, they want to show it to their coworkers, all kinds of things like that. So we haven't had a policy in place. So I think part of that was to provide our department heads with the tools to say, yeah, it's fine, or no dogs allowed.
And even in this building, if you look at the second, third, and fourth floor, it's almost all individual offices. They're all small, enclosed offices. So, I mean,
what about cat people?
Wait, Supervisor Strom had something.
The question I have is, how do you define workplace? You define it as this building, or I'm on a road?
It'd be any county building. So, highway wanted to have a dog in one of their, let's say out at Wabaca, if they wanted to bring one of their dogs in and have it in there, there's a public there.
Could you have it in the truck when you drive there?
Yeah, I think you could.
How about if you're on a work site?
And my second follow-up to that is, why dogs? Why not pets?
If you open up the parrots, whatever you want. I mean, typically it's dogs. I mean, having a dog-friendly workplace is maybe not common everywhere, but it's not common as well. I've never heard of it other than that.
I'm not a cat person.
You get discrimination suits. Supervisor Larson, do you have something?
Yeah, I'm a cat person.
That's unfortunate.
I'm a dog person.
Yeah.
I'm very secure in my personality. I know it's tough. They're not like cats because they're threatened by them. But yeah, if you have someone that wants to bring in their cat, and now you got cats and dogs living together, and mass hysteria.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen someone deal with
it. In my time, I've never heard a request back.
Maybe because like cats, like they don't over things so high.
They'd be off wherever in the building.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it is you can generally, I know you could probably leash a cat and control it, but I think the canine lends itself to be controlled with a leash.
Yeah, no, my only point was to Supervisor Richard, very simply, you do see it more and more common, these over-the-road truck drivers having a dog, especially in the truck. Yeah, and they go all over the country, and it's just commonplace. They have
That's different, though. That's totally different.
No, it's the workplace.
Right, but that's not probably a big.
You're alone in your truck. You're not in an open cube space or in an office with. That's different to me. Way different.
So if I work outdoors, meeting, I can bring my dog with me.
We have guys that do that.
That's my workplace.
We have guys that do that.
I think definition of workplace is, and I'm not going to debate this. It's foolish to debate it, but.
Well, I'm not going to vote no against it because I have my constituents already think on me because I won't support the Constitution. I'm certainly
Well, I mean, I think there are some legitimate concerns. I mean, you like to say cats and dogs in the building, or if it is truly a public area or not, or what if you have a couple, like what if you have like 3-4 dogs in the same office that don't get along or are barking at each other? I don't know.
But in that case, we would rely on the department head to say.
A lot of people department heads, what works, what doesn't. We just wouldn't want dogs in areas where they can come in contact with the public. But if they're barking, I mean, they're not going to be allowed. Sure.
Well, I'm absolutely. I've had dogs for the last 34 years, so I love dogs, but I just think, well, if
a trial period.
Yeah, right. I guess, like you said, if it doesn't work, we could get rid of. We could change it back.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
get some complaints.
Yeah. I mean, certainly you can try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's a free benefit. I mean, if employees may really like it, and they may not get traction at all. We just repeal it. But
how about if you just start with bring your dog to work day?
Well, I think the national take your dog to work day is like June 27th. Yeah.
So do that. See what happens. And come back with this.
What do you think is going to the first day you bring your dog? The productivity in your area is going to go way down. Everybody's going to want to pet your dog. But after a couple of days, then get used to the dog and they're not spending a lot of time. When you have National Dog Day, I mean, nothing gets done because everybody's looking at everybody's dogs and talking. And, it's, oh my God, isn't he so cute or whatever. And so I just don't. There are a lot of things that happen in Seattle that I'm not sure we want to emulate. So the Amazon.
That is true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you meant
really well. But I'll go with the majority on this. Whatever.
Regardless of what I think we need to resolve the DA's issue because I know he'd like to see a path forward on that.
I don't know if we need a county policy or if it's just. I mean, if it's just leave it to the department decision. I'm not quite sure what, to have a whole county policy just to allow the DA to bring it in. Okay.
Yes.
You cover this as a workplace rule as opposed to a policy?
Department specific rule type thing.
I don't know. Do we have that specific rule?
Yeah, the department's going to establish work rules. Sure.
So, Chairman, when you had your employee survey,
Jason Graham on.
No, and actually, I don't know they're brought up bringing dogs into work, but
except that people have brought dogs. But if maybe we just.
Well, dogs will be nervous, so imagine to start with, they're going to have some accidents because they'll be excited, anxious to be in their new place. So maybe we say only people with no party can bring their dog.
I mean, that would be considered. I mean, if the dog had an accident, I don't think we'd allow the dog back. So.
All right, I'm done.
I mean, I worked at home for some time during the pandemic. And the last place I want to work is in the same room with my dog.
Yeah. Does anyone want to make a motion, or do we want to change this?
I'd like to make a motion to amend this to just limit it at this point to allowing the district attorney's office to have a comfort dog for child victims of crime.
Okay. Do we need to write that down exactly, or you got that?
I didn't hear it fully.
What's that?
I didn't hear it fully.
Okay. Just the part, okay.
Yeah, and it's in your support document. I'd like to make an motion to amend this resolution to read
the background information.
I think the committee could just authorize the DA to do it. We kind of scrap the policy.
Yeah, it kind of seems, I don't know if it makes sense to put a policy in our PMP that applies to one dog.
We just want to grant the request that we have received from the district attorney's office to have a comfort dog for child victims of crime. That is the original request.
Did you hear that, Supervisor Larson? You got that?
And we grant the DA to bring dogs, but we would not do the policy for the rest of the employees.
Correct.
Like it.
Second?
Mr. Richards, I'll second your motion.
Okay, Supervisor Richard made a motion, Supervisor Winker seconded. Are we all good with that for clerk? We all good with that? All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. Thank you.
Back to bite us.
All right. Action item F.
Nice dog.
Yeah, really. Yeah, the headline in the paper. Action
We
item.
like cats.
And we have cat lovers. Wire transfers number 3277 through 3291 and April 2021 schedule of vouchers. Do we have a motion to approve the payment of those? No discussion. Supervisor Winker made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Larson was seconded. Any discussion on the schedule of vouchers? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? None. Carries 5-0. All right. Discussion item C, the radio project update.
We have our project manager with us today. We have a 90-minute presentation. I'm not. No, I'm
Our old English masters available?
Yeah, we have a sort of a brief update for the committee today once we come back in session. We lost quorum.
Radio's last, what, 10 years?
What's that?
Radio's last 10 years?
Well, Washington counties are 20 years, so.
Okay, at least 10.
Yeah.
So we
7 to 10.
On installing it by that time we have to redo it the next time.
Well, I still got a warranty. Warranty hasn't started ticking yet. Just because we haven't accepted the project yet because we haven't finished it.
Oh, let's win it all at once.
Yeah.
Supervisor Maltek can rejoin us.
Still have portions, definitely.
The longest discussion we've ever had in this county of revolves around dogs. Like dog parks, dog policies.
Well, my parents would be in Supervisor Larson's camp with the cats.
Yeah, it's not just me.
No, there's about 50% of them.
I like dogs too, don't get me wrong. I love dogs. I like cats too. I'm a pet lover.
Who's the vice chair? Oh, it's Tom. My army brother.
Otherwise, we could plow forward here.
Like his comments about dogs in Korea.
So can I ask a question, or we wait for Paul?
I think we hear Paul's here. Let's keep going. I gotta get going here.
Yeah. So we'll keep it brief. I think we got a high level update. All right. I think the best news we have to report is we have a call at 3 o'clock today, which should lead us to project closeout, which will allow us to move forward with the implementation of the radios. So I think with that, I'll just turn it over to Dennis.
Can you tell Chief Royce that right away?
Yeah, we will.
Speed dial. All right, so to Jason's point, this afternoon we have a call to discuss closing out the package and signing system acceptance. Signing system acceptance would allow us to go through and do the installations of all the units, start prepping, programming, and portable radios for issuance.
And I'm sorry, that's approved by the plan from the fire and sheriff's.
Yeah, they were
okay.
Yes. We may have to go back and do some additional programming.
I'll touch on that. So once we get system acceptance, we could start loading. All right, so I've been working with the Harris team because they had to travel. They're not able to travel during the COVID ordeal. So GCI, General Communications in Milwaukee, I've been spending a lot of time there getting prepped for the upcoming issuance of all those portables. Because you start getting 2,000 units, a lot of radios, a lot of batteries, a whole bunch of stuff needs to be sorted out by department. It's the equipment receipts, who got what gifted. And that went to our capitalization study at the beginning of the year. So what we would be gifting the different departments. So that process has been worked in parallel, even though we've been sort of waiting for these punch list items to get done, in which there was like at one point 42 and we were down to 27 not that long ago. We got one remaining punch list item for them to close out. We'll discuss that today. We're not closing the project till they close out this last item. We want everything 100% right. So if we wanted to go back in history about the delays in this program, I'm here to talk about that too. Originally, we had the first delay or lengthening of the project was the Mequon Tower. That tower had failed, so we had to produce a new tower. So we signed a contract with an assumption saying that your towers can receive all the equipment that will go on there and it won't cause any structural problems. Well, Mequon failed with, failed with the cracked foundation and some overloading. So we had to build that tower site. That was approximately 8 to 10 months, depending on if you look at time frame, permitting, and what to get the tower built from cradle to grave and purchased, steel stack, erected, the whole 9 yards. So that was delay 1. Delay 2, which ones several of you are aware from our previous meeting, was the installation of the antenna at Justice Center, which they put the wrong antennas with the wrong amount of electronic downfill. We say we're not ready to go and do a coverage test because they would have failed it. They would have had to do it with the project anyways. So that second one was a lengthy one. And the reason why that was lengthy is because as that was going on, we had a pandemic or the COVID, depending on your opinion. A lot of companies weren't traveling. We couldn't even get people to go out to the tower site into the field, depending on what part of the country you were from. But what we did is during that time frame, we've had 10 people on this project from Harris side. We've had 3 engineers, we've had 4 salespeople, and we've had 3 project managers. And you could argue that the guy that's really not doing the job is the 4th one. So we've had a lot of personnel change, and with every change in personnel, you got to educate history, what went on, so you're losing time there. But during that time frame, we did have an excellent rep that was with us at our last meeting, Tim Romanelli, and a lot of that was documented with my conversations, escalating things to their management pipeline, and I've got about 25 years. I got 25 years with a buddy that's like the head counsel at Harris. Okay, and we've talked about these things. As these things went down, we basically ended up, because Tim said he'd make us whole at that time frame. We went to all of the fire departments, police departments. We upgraded our microphones. We upgraded to intrinsically safe. We did pretty much a lot of things for the departments. Well, the bill on that thing was like 8.4 mil at that time frame. Okay, our change order for this county established we're not spending no more than this amount here, was 3.4. Well, that number came in at a 67% discount. We got pretty much everything we asked for. So they did compensate us rather well, and believe me, that $3.5 million that we will spend over at the other party, that definitely covered your infrastructure. I mean, from cradle to grave. And if I went back into history to Washington's, and I know you guys don't care about Washington, but their first project, they didn't make coverage. So what did Harris do? They had to spend about $2 million giving them sites. Same scenario, we just got it in equipment. All right, and the pandemic, of course, I covered. The last delay that's specifically on us, I mean, well, you could argue Mequon was on us because the tower failed. It was assumption that our top structure had received the antennas. The last delay was the programming issues. Programming these radios, this was an upgrade radio project. Said another way, if I was going to turn in my 203 at the arms room, my grenade launcher, I would get another 203. I won't get a 203 with old handles or things like that. It wouldn't be an improvement. A bunch of the disciplines on the fire side wanted to take exception to that and wanted to tell us their wish list, so we went down that and we were able to purchase that. Within that wish list, they wanted to be able to have the interoperability, because that's the main thing for P25 phase 2, is to be able to talk together. Wanted to have that interoperability mode with your surrounding, like you do with Washington County, but you wanted to roll that out to Waukesha, Milwaukee, and Sheboygan counties. We got a meeting on June 3rd with Sheboygan. That interoperability is still not complete yet, because it's just not like, hey, can I put your radio on your system and listen to it? When we got into Milwaukee and Waukesha, which took us several months, many meetings, many documents. One, Milwaukee don't own their talk groups. Their users do. So there's a whole process. So if Chief Rice wanted to go utilize his radios there, he would have to go down to Milwaukee. He would have to sign their process. And I got the process for everyone at the last rug. Here's the process, 40 pages long. This is what you got to do. And by the way, you got to shuttle your vehicles there. They'll program them for you for a cost. So it's at that level. Talked to Jason and got county opinion. County opinion was like, now I'll give you the radios, but you want to do this extra stuff, that's going to be on your dime, not the county's dime. So that's where the individual agencies got to do that agreement. That is a lengthy process, whether you are trying to do it in my neck of the woods between Chicago and Libertyville or anywhere else. So this programming ordeal has basically added about 3.5 months going back and forth. We've just said, no, we will do the programming updates, but we're going to do it once they're ferreted out. Said another way, because agency XYZ wants to utilize the radios this way and wants the dispatchers to handle it this way. They really can't dictate what the county does and how the sheriff operates his dispatch center. So there's policies and procedures that need to be in place for all departments, uniformity. So they're working through those things, and they'll be doing some beta tests in the future. We're going to go back to our original plan, put a fairly easy boiler that matches the old radios. So you got the same sort of programming, so there ain't a training issue in the field. And then after the fact, let me go to page 2 here. Sorry, lost my train of thought, could be old age. Okay. So the best way we could see to accommodate this, because everywhere I've been, whether it was Texas, Manhattan, New York, Philadelphia, Georgia, I've been doing this a long time. We program radios 3 times. Everybody says this is the finalized program. I want to be able to talk to you. Then they go to work the first day and, oh, I didn't have you. So you end up herding cats with, depending on your department, 7,000, 10,000 users. We got about 2,000 here, smaller area. But that's time consuming to touch every radio. There was no way we were going to do that. So Jason asked me to go ahead and say during this negotiation, let us get this over-the-air programming ordeal so we could do it automated. So you could almost do it like a cellular thing, turn your phone on, update programming. Well, we looked into that, we drilled into that, and they agreed to have OTAP. We had OTAP with over-the-air programming loaded on the system. It's been tested, it works. But the problem with the over-the-air programming is if you tied up, and I wanted to push 2,000 programs, which are lengthy, with firmware underneath it, you're going to push that out to departments. One, all the units got to go on. Okay, so you know, police shift work, some radios aren't going to be on. It's a pain. So really not the best way to do it. Good for not doing a mass programming. If you wanted to just do, like you said, Belgium department, you could push it out to 5-10 units, made for that. So what we did is our new sales guy, we told Jack Scully that we want to have that aptitude to be able to program these things, because there's probably going to be 2 or 3 programs over the next couple of years as they see the new technology works better this way. So Harris is working on purchasing a process that would allow Wi-Fi to do mass programming for us. They would purchase it. It was about $80,000. They will purchase it out of their Michigan location, and they would offer it to us at a service that would be 1/10 that. So we're waiting.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I need to step away for a few minutes. I'll be back, but I'm just a point of order. I need to step away.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay, thank you.
So we got that over-the-air programming, plus we're going to get a second piece on top of that, on top of mass programming. Because really, if you put that out on the system, your voice communications or your data communications, your smart communications on the radio, the system's just going to be pushing out programs. Communications are going to be queued. That would be tragedy in public safety. So that's why we're going with that extra piece. Oh, and then the final cutover. We get to the point to where we get cut over. Harris lets us go, and we've signed the agreement. We're able to cut over. We're going to do this by Ozaki equipment first. That's going to be a controlled beta. Back in the Nextel days, you release new towers. You always had your engineers drive it to see where your failures were before your customers identified it, which the engineers definitely didn't, but the customers did, and then you got a nightmare. So the way we're going to be releasing this system, we'll be releasing it to Ozaki, DPW, those types of units first, and the sheriff's department. Then we'd be going out to the external users. That way we can catch any glitches that go wrong with the system that we see or observe, or that a user sees and observes, and we'd be able to communicate it back. So within this process, we've got, I guess the best analogy is the 2 dimmer switches. We've got the old 800 EDAC system that we own the channels for, and we got the new P25, and if you pretend they're dimmers, we're going to be able to take, instead of like a typical thing where 10,000 users are going on a new system, and then all the problems hit right there, we're going to be able to do it by department, turning this dimmer up, turning this dimmer down by capacity, and that way we'll see if we have loading issues as the system gets loaded, because that's when they'll hit. You know, you'll find programming issues, you find firmware issues, you'll find stuff that Lynchburg didn't even know was out there. The users will find it. So we're going to do a very controlled installation plan. Yeah, and I don't know if it's for this group, but due to relationships improving between the 2 counties, Washington County had a need for a site in this area here in Ozaki County. We worked through some issues. We've got some plans. We got a meeting tonight on it, and Sheriff Marty and Captain Stacer, Robbie over there. We've worked out the plans. We've got the whole development. It'd be a half, 100%. And within that, we hired Carl Guzzi, who used to be your Wisconsin State frequency coordinator, the guy that manages all your frequency for the past 20 years.
He's on board my staff, not as my direct employee, but working for both counties. And he's will be bringing us to Region 54, which is in Joliet, where we got to discuss why Washington County's signal is generated in Ozaki's, area. Normally that would never play, but it's common sense. You'd be using the site. It would even shore up your coverage a little bit better. The FCC and FAA like the fact that municipalities using the same tower instead of building new towers all over the place. So that was going to work out nicely. And there's even talk of future down the road, potentially sharing some maintenance costs, The brothers over there in Washington County have 10 sites. You guys got 4, potentially 5. What sort of deal does that get us for when you come in and do the sums update or the FX update on the actual backbone, Instead of, you got one tech just hitting one county, you're hitting 2. So they're gaining efficiency, so get us a break. So that'll be coming after we get it past all of the neighbors and stuff like that. But that's my update. Anybody have any questions? I tried to condense this since.
No, thank you for that. As far as timing goes, so when do you think we could say that it's all done? All this, completely where we're.
Oh, you're talking end user gear?
Yeah, as we get to where everybody's got.
I would say you're looking at 8 to 10 months, depending on installation time from when we start. Like these guys have got like 6 to 8 weeks of work to stage that equipment. Once it's all staged, then we can start that installation. So,
well, maybe a year from now.
Yeah, you're saying a year to complete. But if I back down, and believe me, I know this project went a lot lengthier than I had anticipated, but the tower, something we definitely didn't know. And the pandemic, I never seen anything like it.
That was a killer.
What's that? Oh, that was a bone. And that's their own fault because they didn't have site management. And they ate it. They ate the cost.
So the first radios that'll go out will be on the HIP radios. And those will go out really pretty quickly once they're ready and staged.
Yeah, we could.
The easier part is having to go into every fire truck in the county and have every cruiser, every vehicle, and actually install a new radio. So that part will take a little bit longer.
So in a few weeks, a couple of months, most will start going out by the end of a year's time. We'll have
everything be installed.
All right.
And believe me, every rug meeting I take, I don't think there's a fire guy in this county that likes me, so I must be doing something wrong.
All right.
It's been tough.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks. I really appreciate that.
Appreciate you having me. And the dog thing is good.
Listen, it's something interesting.
I just had a dog. Oh, there's a dog the other day, so I'm cleaning up stuff in my house all the time.
I got an old dog. I'm cleaning up stuff.
I like with the dog over.
Yeah.
Oh.
Usually every Saturday night.
All right, so department reports. County clerk, anything?
Okay.
All right, finance department.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jay is on vacation this week, so you got the B team here today.
All right.
Really 2 things that I wanted to touch on. We had our auditors in the office last week completing the year-end audit. Went exceedingly smooth, exceedingly well. Finances are in good shape. No findings, no issues. The goal is to have them at the finance committee reporting to you guys in June and then at the board in July. The other thing that was not included on Jay's report that we just heard back on this week, we were awarded the PAFR for last year's report for our popular annual financial report. That's the 2nd year in a row. Puts the county in a pretty small group of government organizations that have received awards for their budget preparation, the CAFR, the annual financial report, and then this popular annual financial report. So a nice trifecta for the county to hang its hat on. And really, that's about all I had, unless there were questions.
Do we get our $9 million in American Recovery Act money? Okay, we'll let him in. We'll let him in.
All right, we'll go on that. Okay. Sales tax figures are up right away. So.
Yep, tracking well with sales tax.
750, I think. So we're right on budget.
The year. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, human resources.
Yeah, I already spoke about the major things we're working on right now. I really have nothing to add unless there's any additional questions.
No, I think we're ready to.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, thanks. Thank you. Information tech. County treasurer.
Really short form.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we got to get moving here. Yeah.
3 things. I know you have my report. If there's ever any questions, please email me or call me. I'm happy to answer. In regards to the American Rescue Plan funds, we should be seeing that payment filed on Friday and Tuesday. Okay, so I did inquire about it yesterday because I was like, I thought you said it was going to be here by Tuesday. And they were like, no, we said as long as it was, hopefully it made it in time. And,
so this is actual money we're receiving. It's not like the state thing. So where'd the money go?
It'll go, well, I'm going to deposit it in our money market too. So it's in an interest bearing account since we're allowed to do that. From there, I had spoken with Jason and Jay. I'd like to put it over to Dana where we can maximize our funds. They'll keep it segregated. They'll keep it segregated for our reporting, but they're going to earn more interest dollars. Treasury bonds are yielding a little more than bank interest rates right now. Easy enough to get liquidities in 24 to 48 hours.
Is there any chance we have to give that money back?
I think from what we understand, and the details are still coming out, but with the U.S. Treasury's liberal definition of revenue losses, we'll pretty much have the ability to spend these funds on any county effort that we deem necessary.
So there's no real restrictions. We get it like a grant almost because we had some revenue losses.
Correct.
And that's the same with the next 8.5 million we get?
Yeah, well, we're assuming, the rules are still kind of coming out, but basically the U.S. Treasury Department says if your revenues didn't grow more than 4.1%, you can use anything.
So basically everybody.
And Jay and I did some quick back of the envelope calculations and this doesn't account for any. So, and the other thing you do is you subtract out all the COVID revenues from that number. So, we'll be between public health, LASADA, and the county's CARES Act funds. If we take those out of the equation, we'll be.
What about taxes? Can they be lowered? That's still.
That was something in the Treasury thing I said.
There might be some things we're able to do.
And also the county might have a little.
Yeah, we have a little bit more flexibility than the state does. Yeah, I think that's something we'll talk about. In context.
So we don't have to vote to take that money. That's just automatically we take it.
Yeah.
Like 2.5 million we had to vote for, but the 17 million
Well, we can bring back a budget. We'll bring back a budget amendment when the funds are.
You can't make a motion to send it back.
I did think
we should at least earn the interest on it.
I did think just for posterity, even just to get it over in a segregated account where we're making money on it. Whatever happens with the funds and all those. At least then we've got to put away in a good, safe, interest-bearing account until we figure out what we're doing with it or what we're allowed to do with it as those updates come out. So as soon as we get that, I'll contact Dana and I'll get that wire transfer set up so we can move it from our Port Washington State Bank account over to Charles Schwab. Otherwise, let's see, Jason gave you the sales tax update.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back. Sorry to interrupt, I'm back.
Okay, thank you.
$749,880. It's up $125,000 from last year for March's sales tax. And if you guys are ever in the mood for wanting to play with a big lummox of a dog, you're welcome to come over to my house and meet my 7-month-old Great Dane named Freya.
Sorry you can't bring it into work.
No, she cannot come here. So, not now. But you guys are welcome to come on over and meet her. She's a fun dog. She has a little too much fun. So, but otherwise I have nothing else. Everything's starting real well. Our money's doing well. interest continues to decline and stay flat. Currently, right now, the average is about 0.05% from the full rate. So,
all right.
Hopefully, we see that come up.
So, any other questions for Josh?
Just a question for Jason. Jason, on this ARPA money, and I do believe you're going to be spending some of this 17 million on broadband. At what point will you come with strategy to include local municipalities who want to partner?
So I think there's two things there. Number one is, I think part of it hinges on what happens. This is what we're hearing from the Counties Association. There's a broadband component in the second infrastructure bill too that's out there. So I think that has to work its way through. But I think as soon as we have clarity on that, I think that'll be the point where we sit down and say what do we need, what do we have to do, and how do we partner on those types of issues.
Because I will tell you, from Paul's like me, he's belongs to a local municipality. These ARPA funds for local municipalities are going to be a lot tougher, especially towns, because it's really focused on water, broadband, and
Although if you have revenue loss,
they were tougher, but they won't be.
Yeah. So yeah, the advice we're receiving is we have to see what happens with the second infrastructure piece, because there's a broadband component to that as well. So they just want to, you don't want to go down a path and then find out, now you have other funding from the federal government that leads you in another direction.
And I will tell you what the Towns Association is saying out loud is, there certainly is no hurry. You have until December of 24 to at least contract with somebody, and then you really have another 2 years past that once you contracted with somebody to spend that money. So the wise thing is, kind of pull the reins back and let's see where everything else is going. If we can get any more dialogue out of the U.S. Treasury to, kind of, where are you guys going with this?
I foresee the biggest challenge is going to be is finding companies that are qualified to do this.
Right, and the price is going to go up through the roof.
Because
budgeting, you're going to have to budget way more because you see the price of lumber and everything else. But think of all these companies.
You might have heard that at the board.
Oh, I know, plenty of times, and you hear it everywhere. But but think of all these companies that do this broadband work and all that. All over the country, it's going to be like inundated.
If you're ever thinking about opening a broadband installation company, now would be probably the time.
Yeah, it's going to be. What is the definition of inflation? Too few assets being chased by too much money.
Right. All right.
Anyway, any other questions? All those. So next meeting day, June 24th. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For the record, I will not be in attendance at the June 24th meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.